Hi, welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. This is Marie Hopkinson. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner, an acupuncturist and a herbalist in Perth, Western Australia. And today I'm going to be talking about, continuing the series on the mind-body connections in Chinese medicine. We're going to be talking about the interconnectedness of our emotions and our physicality of our body, particularly in relation to life purpose and planning. Now, the reason why I'm doing this particular episode or this topic is because it's coming up to the new year. You may be watching this at a different time of the year, that's totally fine, but it's something that we think about, I think, when we think about setting your New Year's goals and resolutions and things like that. Something to consider is what is your purpose in life? Where are you going? Where are we heading? And it is normal at times in our life to go through cycles where we have cycles of change, and we just, like, you may have been very purposeful at one period of your life, and you think, hey, something has changed, and why don't I feel like I want to do this anymore? Or why don't I feel like this fits with me anymore? So in terms of life purpose and planning, and motivation as well is something I want to touch on in this video today, or this podcast. If you're listening on the audio, welcome. So let's start with the 5 elements. We have wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Now these are representational systems or functional systems in our body. And the first cycle that they go in is this, what's called the generational cycle. So one generates the other. So in order to have good wood in your body, let's say, which is something we'll be talking about, you need water to generate wood. Water generates wood, right? So water gives birth to wood. Wood gives birth to fire, fire to earth, earth to metal, and metal to water. So what does that mean? It means that the systems in our body are so interrelated that sometimes something could go haywire in a physical sense, like your digestion, for instance, and that would be in the earth element. Or metal could go out of balance, and that's to do with, in the Ayurvedic system, metal relates to air, right? So it's the breathing, it's the lungs, and it also relates to digestion in terms of our colon, our large intestine. So it's like the elimination of substances in our body, that pure, that last bit of elimination, that's your large intestine, and that's a metal kind of function. And so there's so many great little interconnections that Chinese medicine can offer us, and it can just give you an insight into how things may be interconnected for you. The other thing I want to use in this video series today, or today's topic particularly, is a little bit of psychology, a little bit of stuff that might help you in your planning. So if you're someone watching this and you think, Marie, I'm ready to plan my new year. I want to plan 2020, let's say, if you're watching this in 2019, or I'm ready for the new year. And some people do their new year planning in the new year, right? I tend to do it around the start of December. I start to think about, what do I want for next year? What things do I want to leave behind? And that start with that, because that's something where it's no point in just adding stuff to your life without leaving stuff behind, especially if you're already a productive person, you're already a busy person. Like someone like me, I'm already doing a lot of stuff. I can't just add more things to it. And like, on one hand, if you follow someone like Grant Cardone, he'll say, oh, how do you build your hustle muscle? You add something, right? And I totally believe in that. And that's true. Like, you don't know what you can capacitate. You don't know what you can do until you actually get in there and do it. And sometimes it's in our mind. We think, oh, I can't do that because, I'll just be too busy, or it just seems too hard or too difficult. And then once you get in there and do it, you realize, hey, I actually can. I think you have to know yourself and be honest with yourself. Like, is that you? Are you the person that needs to add something, needs to add on extra things to be able to build your hustle muscle, let's say? Or are you the person that's, hey, Marie, I'm really already productive. I'm really already doing a lot, and I want to get better at what I'm already doing. I want to be a person that's like, I want to refine things a bit better. And in that sense, sometimes you have to give up stuff. Now, even if you're building your hustle muscle and you're adding something, that will inevitably make you give up something, because you realize, hey, if I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, I have to give up my TV time to do that, or I have to give up my morning sleep in to do that, or whatever it is, right? So within that adding something aspect, there is that, hey, you've got to give something up. So let's think about, in 2019 or in this year, what are the things that you want to leave behind in the year? What are the things you don't want to take into the new year, right? I love having little clean outs, and before I was filming this video, I was having a little clean out of some of my stuff from my old businesses that, you know, I'm just like, hey, I'm not going to be running a store anymore. I need to get rid of some of this stock. I need to get rid of some of this stuff. I'm not going to be doing that anymore. And I think at the time when I boxed this stuff up, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. So it wasn't like I was procrastinating. I just didn't know. But now I know, and so it's like, hey, I got to get rid of this stuff. I got to deal with that. So what are the things for you that you need to deal with, that you need to get rid of? Now, it might be physically going through, and that's why I love the good old spring clean, right? Because for us in Australia, springtime comes after winter, which, yes, it comes after winter for every state and country. Ding dong, that's no surprise. But springtime comes after winter, and that's just before Christmas, right? It's just before the new year. Whereas if you're in the opposite season, if you're in the US or in a different, in the UK or something like that, obviously your springtime still comes after winter, but that's halfway through, you know, it's sort of March, April, when that's happening. So either way, spring is a season of doing new things, right? Spring is like the emergence of that life that's been dormant in winter. So that life has still been there, but it's been a bit dormant in winter. And so this emergence. And so one of the things, if you watch the first video in this series that I talk about, is the correlation between the 5 elements and our needs in life, let's say. So how we should live in, I think I called the video, Are You in Harmony with Nature, right? So are you living in a harmonious way that helps you kind of go in accordance with what the seasons are doing? And so it's very hard to do new things in winter, right? And so you might be watching this now at the end of 2019 in the UK or the US, and it is winter for you, and you're thinking, oh, Maria, I don't want to do anything new. I just want to, and I watched a Russell Brand video today, and he was talking about, you know, that part of the community of Christmas is to get people out of that, you know, that dismal, hey, I just want to stay in bed and rug up, and, you know, and that's what you want to do in winter, and that is natural and normal, but we still need community, and that's part of why such a big fuss is made over community, apart from the commercialism, but let's not get into that. Part of the community of Christmas, yeah, is to get people out of that wintry, dismal season. So what I'm getting at is it's very important to live in harmony with nature. And I think to also understand, give yourself a little bit of space and room to know that there will be times where you're not the same in each season, and that's normal. Okay, so you might have a high expectation. Let's say you're a high level person, you have a high expectation of yourself throughout the year. But there are seasons where you will be more productive than others, just naturally because of the environment. And utilizing that can make us better in those things. So spring is the season of doing new things. So let's just start with that. And the metal element, which is relates to autumn element, is more related to letting go. Okay, so if earth gets out of control, then it doesn't nourish metal, and then it becomes harder for people to let things go. Hoarding, for instance, is generally associated with the metal element. It's a thing that's associated with the Po, which is the corporeal soul in Chinese medicine. Now, this may be getting a little bit too out there for you, or not so much out there, but a bit too much. If you're a student in Chinese medicine, this is probably a higher level than you need to know as a patient, is what I'm getting at. If you're a student of Chinese medicine, then you'd be right into this, but so don't get too bogged down. If you don't understand, you know, where this is going, that's fine, or what like this little part of it, it'll make sense in the roundabout way. So the metal element relates to the ability to let go. A person who's got a healthy metal element is able to travel well as well. So someone who can't, if you have trouble sort of leaving things behind, letting things go, it could be in a physical sense, like hoarding objects, or when you travel, you have to pack up every single thing. You're like a pack rat, and you can't let anything go, and you're just not sure. You don't feel secure, or you find it harder to feel secure. Or maybe you were a person that could travel easily, and then as years go by, you become feeling less secure with just going on a few things on your back or nothing at all. You think, oh, I couldn't leave this house, or I find it hard to leave. Find it hard to let things go. Well, then maybe there's a metal element aspect there for you. And in a physical sense, that relates to your lungs. So if you've got a lung problem, if you've got a cough that won't go away, you've got a difficulty in speaking. Sometimes I've found some patients I've seen have got like what we call timidity. in Chinese medicine. Now, a timid voice is typically a gallbladder issue as well. So there's not that, like your voice comes from your lungs, obviously, you're breathing with your lungs, but a person that speaks really quietly and you can hardly hear them, and if you're on Seinfeld, they'd be called a low talker, right? And you kind of have to listen in so hard, but they also maybe have difficulty in putting themselves out there in the world. Now that's a gallbladder wood kind of issue. So I can already sense that this video is a little bit of going to be off on a little bit of a tangent. And that's how I do most of my videos. So if you don't like it, off you go. But if you do, then yeah, welcome. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. I never did that thing at the start. The good old subscribe at the beginning of the video. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you're liking this. So we've got the issue sometimes with earth becoming, and that's a good one to start with because of the digestion. Let's say your diet goes a bit out of balance. You put on a bit of weight. You're not digesting food as well as you should be. Maybe you've got a lot of diarrhea or a lot of constipation, or something, your bowels just aren't properly formed, something like that. That would mean that your earth would be having difficulty to generate metal, and maybe you have trouble letting go. And so what we're talking about first is for your goals, the first thing I would think of is one, letting go. Let it go, just like Frozen, right? Let it go. So try to let go. What do you need to let go of? So that's the first thing I'd ask yourself. And that may be harder than it seems, right? You're like, yeah, Marie, I'd like to lose weight. Yeah, Marie, I'd like to be fitter. Yeah, Marie, I'd like to have more money. I would like to let go of poverty. I'd like to let go of the people that are surrounding me that are negative, right? But those negative people, like you might want to let go of negativity in your life, but those negative people might be your family and friends. And so that's harder than it seems, to let go of that stuff that is hard, right? And so it's not necessarily an easy thing, just because we're saying, well, let it go, you just, oh, off you go, I'll never see you again. But if you don't make a note of it, I'm a big believer in writing things down and planning things out in a written way. Because if you don't write it down, it's just a thought in your mind and it comes and goes. But if you write something down, you can stick it up on your wall, you can write it every day. That's another thing I learned from watching some of Grant Cardone's videos was like he writes his goals every day. Now, up to that point, I'd never done that. I'd just written them once a year and like been, oh, okay. So sometimes I put them up on my wall, right? And I would actually, I think before then I would have always had them up on my wall in my office, like so I would have my goals there. But I certainly didn't write them every day. I didn't write them out again and again every day. And that really helps, right? So it just makes you, one, it keeps you more accountable and it makes you, more, yeah, it's just a useful thing to do. I haven't achieved every single one of my goals, like no way. But it's helped me achieve, I've certainly achieved more goals doing that, and the periods of time where I have done that, and I haven't done that every single day since I've known about that, which has been about 2 or 3 years. But the times I've done that, like the times I've committed to doing that more regularly, like every day write your goals, I've done that for months and months and months at a time. And those have been the best productive times of my life. Like, you're going for it. You're on fire in that point, in that thing. And I'm probably more talking about in a business sense, but there are things in a personal sense that I think we tend to neglect, because what happens is you get in the routine of life, right? You just go, okay, so next thing you know, like three weeks will have gone by. You'll be back into work. It'll be January, mid-January. You'll think, where's the year gone? It's already started. And you would feel guilty because you haven't done the things you wanted to do right at the start. And that guiltiness sometimes then makes you just feel like, oh, I can't do it. Now, guilt is also associated with metal. Like that, it's a type of grief. I think we can think of guilt as a type of grief. It's like a sadness, which is, so in pure TCM, like, or traditional Chinese medicine, or the fundamentals of Chinese medicine, right? Let's say so. They don't utilize all these different terminologies for emotions that we have now. So they say sadness and grief, right? We can expand upon that to see how that fits, and sometimes with this interrelation, like anxiety is another good example, right? So we would think in a Western sense, like anxiety can be a disorder or a disease, but it could also be an emotion that people feel, right? And now anxiety is a kind of combination of worry and fear in Chinese medicine, so that's like the wood and the earth. I've got another video on anxiety and like that, the 5 elements, so if that's something for you, go and watch that. But let's get back to this. So we're talking about metal. So how do you make metal strong? So one flavor that makes metal strong is sour. So the sour flavor is a gathering flavor, right? A good analogy is like this. So if I gave you $100 in coins and I said, you need to keep this $100, I'll come back next week and get it back from you. Can you hold on to this for me? If you have a little bag, you can keep those coins in the bag and you gather them all together and you keep them in one spot, right? Whereas if you scatter those coins, like you have a few in this room and a few in that room, or you just grab the thing and just throw it into the air, there's coins everywhere. That would make a nice TikTok video, but you won't have those coins. You'll be searching all through the garden. You'll be looking for where are these coins? Where are these coins? So that's what it's like with your lung energy, if you like, or the functionality of your lung. The sour element gathers things together and helps consolidate it, and that keeps it strong, that keeps it together. The pungent element is like the pungent flavor is like the opposite of the sour. So pungent kind of goes outward like this in a spreading direction. Whoa, that's an arrow. So spreading outwards, right? Whereas the sour flavor has the direct opposite effect. So sour kind of sucks in. Think about when you last sucked on a lemon, or when you watch a little kid sometimes suck on a lemon. They do like doing that sometimes, and it sucks in your face, right? It just gathers things together. So that gathering is the it's like Magic the Gathering, sour the gathering, right? So that gathering flavor is a good one. Now, what are things that are sour? Okay, lemons are sour, grapefruits, certain kinds of, like most citrus fruits have some kind of sour aspect to them. And you don't want too much like sweet and sour mixed together. Like an orange would be not so great because that might generate more damp. So something that you mix, but sour, like in Chinese herbs, one of the main herbs we use is called wu wei zi, which is Schisandra berries. And that is, that's up here somewhere. So that is like these little berries. And sometimes I'll just make a tea out of that when I do singing. I sometimes use that as a tea to just gather your voice. And sour is a flavour, like if someone has a cough, we use the sour flavour in the herbs to help stop the cough, right? To gather things together, to help consolidate the lung energy. And so, yeah, so from a food's perspective, that's where you could use the squeeze of lemon juice first thing in the morning. That's a sour thing. And that's a good thing for your digestion in that way of consolidating. Like it's actually more beneficial for your lungs and getting things moving in that way and like benefiting your lungs in that way in the morning. So that would be something you could try. That's a very common thing. A lot of people have half a glass of warm water, or even cool water if you don't want to have warm water, but half a glass of warm water with a squeeze of lemon the first thing in the morning, right? So that's the first thing I would say, letting go. What do you want to let go of in 2020? What things don't you want to take in there? So get a piece of paper right now and write those things down. I'm a big fan of journaling as well. I love doing journals because it helps you to like have that cathartic process of getting things out. Now, not every process works for every person. Journals isn't a diary in terms of, it's not like, oh, today I did this, tomorrow I did that, but, or tomorrow I'm going to do that, but it's more like you write in it periodically when something has happened, and it can be really good for you to look back on that stuff and go, especially when you go through a place of thinking, nothing's working out, you feel depressed, you feel flat. So using the journal is good. You can go back and look at that, and that's something that psychologists get people to do. It's something that I ask my patients to do from time to time. I always suggest them to do that if they're struggling in that way, and I think that might benefit them. It's a good mental health process is to use a journal. So you could start up a new journal for 2020 and say, right, what are the things for today? I'm going to ask myself this question. What are the things I don't want to take into 2020? This analogy is a really good way of thinking of things. Like if you had a magic stick, a magic wand, and you could just magic it away, right? Then what would you do? Because sometimes as soon as you start thinking of those things, you think, oh no, but it's too hard. Oh no, but I don't want to do. Oh no, but and the excuses come. And so if you're excusifying everything and you just excusify it away, maybe you'll never get to actually write those things down. Now, those things you may not decide to take action on them. Maybe you can't take action on them right now. You're unwilling to take action on them right now. But if you don't write them down, you've got nowhere to start. So write that down. What are the things you don't want to take into 2019. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to play the violin, or still play the violin, but I don't have lessons on it anymore. I'm not that great. But that was the first instrument that I learned, right? And I was about 5 years old, and it got to the point where I think I started when I was 4. So I must have been playing I was either 5.5, 6, something like that, because I think I just started preschool or something like that. And it was about that time where it was getting hard. Like it was all novelty at the start, and you're like, yeah, and you like feel like you're good at it. Or you're just enjoying it, right? And then you get to this point where you realise, you watch other people. Like I remember coming into my lesson and just watching the teacher play and like thinking, wow, I wish I could play like that. And you just want to be able to pick it up and just be able to do it, right? And learning an instrument at a young age is one of the best things I could ever encourage a parent to do for their kids, right? I mean, sport is good too, but either of those things where you've got that discipline and you have to do something, because what you realise, and this is the point that I'm trying to make, is what I wanted for Christmas that year was for Father Christmas to magic me to play the violin. That's what I wrote. Dear Father Christmas, can you please magic me to play the violin? And I don't know what my mum responded with that with. But like she told me that was literally my Christmas wish. Like that's what I wanted. And so it's a hard lesson to learn as a kid that can't happen. But at the same time, that was my thinking that could happen, right? And so what happens is, as we grow up, unfortunately, we realise, well, Santa can't magic me to play the violin. I'm going to have to put in the hard work. I'm going to have to learn how to do it. I'm going to have to go through the pain. Whatever it is, I'm going to have to do that to get the result that I want. I can't just, being a genie comes, and grants my wish. But imagine if that could happen. So take yourself back to that place when you were a kid and you had that childlike wonder, and you didn't have, the good thing about that is you didn't have the constraints of thinking, like, there's goals that I want to do that I am almost reluctant to write down, if I'm honest with myself, if I'm honest with you, because the immediacy is, oh, this is going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to take hard work. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know it's going to be, all of those things. But if you don't write them down, you've got nowhere to start in that place. So let's move on from that. So letting go, let it go. The frozen principle, if you like. Okay, so that's the first one. So what do you need to let go of?